Welcome to Speak Out, Stand Out by Green Communications, where we're learning how to help our kids become better communicators. We believe our voices are the strongest asset we have, and our mission is to empower the next generation to use their voices to make a difference in the world around them. Whether you are a parent, an educator, or are just invested in today's youth, we hope this podcast will help you build confidence in our future, one voice at a time. Welcome back to Speak Out, Stand Out by Green Communications. I'm Elizabeth Green, founder of Green Communications, and today's guest is Maura Ardam. Maura has been a school teacher for more than 25 years and is the founder of Get Kids to Behave and Be Empowered in Life, which is what we are all behind here at Green Communications. So we're really excited to chat with Maura. She also offers parent coaching and a program designed to help parents learn how to guide their kids into what it takes to have improved behavior. And boy, would we all love to know the secrets of that. So Maura, thank you so much for being here. And why don't you just give us a little bit of your background? How did you get into all of this that you're doing today?
Thanks for having me, Elizabeth. Well, I really want to acknowledge you for what you've created, and I really resonate with your mission statement of how you help kids, help students tremendously building their communication skills and their debate skills. And then I noticed in your mission statement, which I really resonated with, which was how much more effective, how much more, what a greater impact you could have if you teach the parents to do essentially what you're doing. So that instead of just a set of kids that you're helping, if you could teach the parents these skills, then the results would be exponentially more. So that's exactly how I started my business, where I was working with my, about 25 students each year as a teacher and having such great results in developing their social and emotional skills. And then specifically for kids who have bad behavior in my classroom year after year, I really helped guide them to have such an amazing, remarkable transformation in improving their behavior and developing really great character traits. And so then I started to see how parents a lot of the time are frustrated and that there's a missing set of knowledge that if they could do this themselves, and how much more sustainable it would be if they could do it rather than just one teacher 1 year out of a kid's life.
Yeah, absolutely. My husband is a public school teacher, and that's what he talks about too. You all have the kids for 8 hours a day, which is a lot, but that's still only a fraction of the day, right? And not every day of the year. So you can make a tremendous impact, but it also has to be supported at home. So I love what you're doing. And so let's just dive right in. One of the things we want to talk about today really is helping our children build empathy and negotiation skills, conflict resolution, all of those things, right? So let's just dive in and start with just, what do you think is the most important thing, and how can we do it at home as parents to support our children and to support the great teachers like you that are working on these things at school?
I guess in a nutshell, the most important thing would be to see how we can't just, snap and expect kids to know these things, that we have to realize that kids are not born knowing these things. And if we don't explicitly teach them, their default mode is going to be, telling on each other, revenge, pestering each other, not having empathy, because they're the mode that they have as children is to not have empathy, and of course these will grow naturally, but we could help facilitate them developing these things. We can be intentional about it to really help them along. So the number one thing that I think is important is to see the blind spot that a lot of parents have, which is why I have my free master class that I'm running about parenting blind spots revealed, because a lot of times parents will just be like, hey, stop fighting, or hey, stop lying, stop being sneaky, or hey, stop saying those mean things when you're angry. But the whole purpose of my business exists because, that's why I have this staircase model to show that if we want kids to actually behave in better ways, we have to look at what are all the steps that they need to be scaffolded in. What are the skills, the competencies, the the abilities that they need to have to be able to behave better. And how are they going to develop these things? We can help them develop these things.
And so what are these building, these stair steps that you're talking about? Like,
Yeah,
what exactly are they?
yeah, exactly what you mentioned. Well, it's the social and emotional, 5 competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, which empathy would fall under that category, responsible decision making, and relationship skills. So in a nutshell, those are the 5 categories. But within that, there's, more detailed categories of, like you said earlier, self-advocacy. Well, first it starts really with self-awareness. So how can a kid, let's say, navigate the, conflicts with other kids, other siblings? Let's say they're having a fight. How can we expect them to, navigate that conflict without first having the self-awareness to be like, wait, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling jealous. Okay, why? Well, because my sister is getting so many presents. It's her birthday. Well, now I can move into what can I, like, a brainstorming of what can I say? Should I go up to my parents and share this with them? Should I go up to my sibling and share this with them, and then ask them, can I play with one of your toys? I'm feeling really jealous. So it all starts with self-awareness that needs to be grown in kids and developed. And then communication skills, speaking up for oneself, like probably you in your company does a lot of, opening up your mouth and saying what you need and what you want. That's so empowering for kids. And then, yeah, the negotiation skills of just like, hey, so yeah, with empathy, um, building, like, once you build empathy, then kids are able to stop and get not only how they're feeling, but how someone else is feeling. So the sibling, like, for example, let's say the older sister is watching a TV show and the little brother is just pinching her and poking her and pestering her. If there's no self-awareness here, the parent will typically will say stop, or the older sister will hit the brother back. So with the skills being developed of empathy and self-advocacy and negotiation, it would go a little something like this, where the younger brother would be aware of how he's feeling, like, and of course the parent needs to help pull this out of the kid, but eventually the kid would be like, wow, I really get bored when my sister's watching her older TV shows about girl stuff that I have no interest in. I really want to play with her, and I'm so bored. I notice I'm pinching her and pestering her because what's really underneath the surface is that I'm frustrated, I'm bored, I want to play with her. I want her attention. And so then, of course, they're just kids. So little by little, they have to grow these things. They're not going to automatically do this,
Right.
but the end result would be that. And then the sister would have grown her empathy skills. So she could, look at him and say, hey, I know you really want to play with me, and then now she can advocate for herself and say, I really want to watch this show. I'm really into it. I love this show. And now the negotiation skills, if you, let me watch the show in peace, stop pinching me and poking me, then when it's over, I'll be happy to play Legos with you because I know you love when I play Legos with you. Is that a deal? Okay, great. So there's just so many skills involved in that, like mutual respect, patience, self-control, brainstorming, problem solving.
I mean, it sounds amazing. Like that example of conversation, like that's exactly how we want our children to react to each other, right? But going back to the self-awareness, how do we help our kids begin to understand this? Is it by naming the feelings? I mean, what do we do to make sure that they start to understand the very first step, which is understanding how they're feeling?
Yeah, I think it all started with me being strong with getting kids. So let's say a kid is having a tantrum, and so the skill that I want parents to develop is like to look underneath the surface. on the surface, it looks like he's being obnoxious, spoiled, bratty. But underneath the surface, if you train yourself to hone in on the bigger picture here, and you're like, wait a second, everyone's looking at, all the adults are standing around laughing and looking at a picture on their phone, and the kid's having a tantrum and pulling on the mom's leg. What's really going on is he didn't get to see the picture on the phone that everyone's talking about. So then you can, go to the kid and be like, hey, are you mad because you really want to see the picture? Everyone's talking about it, but you never got a chance to see the picture they're all talking about. And the kid will be like, uh-huh. And so once they feel so gotten, now they're so much more cooperative to take your suggestions. So now that they feel gotten, the awareness is there, and it's an aha moment to them because they don't have that self-awareness. So they're like, yeah, that is why I'm having a tantrum. And so that helps them build self-awareness. And then now they're prime and ready for you to, tell them the communication skills. Like, we'll go and say, hey guys, I feel left out. Can I see the picture? And stuff like that.
That makes so much sense. And it's giving them leading questions, right? Us being aware of what's going on, or getting an idea of what we think might be the underlying issue, right? Because I know so many times as a mom, when I say, what's wrong when my kids are unhappy, most of the time they just say nothing. And I have kind of always just felt like they just don't want to talk to me about it. But now I'm realizing maybe they can't actually name what is the issue at that moment.
Yeah. And if you're not exactly sure, you can brainstorm. Are you doing this mean thing because you're jealous that you don't have dance classes too? No, and then, okay, dismiss that one. Are you jealous because I was talking to your brother on the couch for 10 minutes and I haven't had a one-on-one talk with you today? Yeah, that's why. So you could keep brainstorming. Yeah.
That really makes great sense. Just a personal example, and sometimes I want to ask you a question about this after I explain, but I have two boys. They're 14 and 10, and they're great kids, but they're two boys and they're brothers and they don't always get along, right? And so it was just a couple weeks ago, my oldest son just could not stop pestering the younger boy that day, all day long. And I felt like all day long I was yelling, leave him alone, because it was just this constant thing. And then, but my son was leaving, the older son was leaving for camp the next day for a week. And this is totally it's in my mind because I'm packing and all that, but all I'm looking at is, why can't he just leave him alone? And then hours later, my husband comes home from work and he's like, he's nervous about going to camp. And sometimes from being on the outside, we can see those things, because as soon as he said that, I was like, oh yes, but I couldn't get past my frustration over having to get onto him all day long to see that there was an underlying issue there. So do you have words of advice if we're too close to the situation, that sometimes we're feeling emotions and feeling ways that we don't want to be feeling because we're frustrated ourselves?
That's so common, and typical. Parents are so busy. You have so much going on. You're preparing for so much. You're running a 10-ring circus. And so that's why a parent coach comes in really handy, or, a parent program, or just, continuing to learn along these lines to, kind of, it's like the same thing. You're teaching your kids to stop and think, and then you actually taking that upon yourself to model it, like, and you can do, as teachers, we do think aloud. So even in front of your boys, you can be like, you can actually go through the whole steps in front of them, modeling it. Like, I notice I'm feeling frustrated because you kids are constantly fighting all day. And I wonder what might be the reason. Is it that you want some of maybe it's because you need alone time? No, maybe it's because, are you feeling anxious? Are you afraid you're going to miss your brother? Are you feeling scared that, and then so you can just stop and kind of model it for them. And how powerful would that be? Because life is so busy. And so if you expect them to do it when their life is so busy, then you have to model it for your own self when you're so busy.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes great sense. Okay, so we've talked about naming the issue, being self-aware, right? And then learning how to advocate for ourselves if once we understand what's wrong with what we're feeling, right? How do we get to the empathy part? Because honestly, when you said that kids are not naturally empathetic, it kind of blows my mind because I feel like that's a skill or a character trait that people are born with. So it's really interesting to think about it that it's not, and it has to be modeled at home. But how do we necessarily teach them that when their world is about themselves?
Well, some kids are more naturally empathetic than others. I don't know if it's nature versus nurture, but parents can definitely, amp up the nurture part of this. So yeah, kids are egocentric. The world revolves around them. And if you're trying to, hold them accountable for their actions or talk to them about something naughty that they've done, they just want to, it seems like their only objective is to deflect blame and not get in trouble. And so it takes some work okay, so first of all, when they do something wrong, we have to take them getting in trouble and us thinking bad of them off the table. So that way, if they've done something wrong to another kid, if they're so obsessed with getting in trouble and getting the consequence, they're not going to be able to relax and have empathy for the other person because they're in a state of self-preservation. So we have to set the tone that, hey, we all make mistakes. Yes, I'll hold you accountable. Yes, you may get a consequence depending on what it was. But ultimately, like, this is a safe space. And so that opens up kids really taking responsibility for their actions. And then the empathy piece opens up so that if you say, hey, so it's really simple. I mean, empathy means putting yourself in someone else's shoes. However, a lot of times if I say this to parents, they'll be like, oh, I already tried, it doesn't work. But the tone and the nuances that I teach are very, important. So if a parent says, how would you feel if you built a tower of blocks and your sister broke it, knocked it down? How would that feel, huh? Of course, that's not going to access the kid developing empathy skills. So
Right.
it's just like the difference is simply, get down on their level and be like in a safe space where they're not defensive. They're not in their fight or flight state, and just be like, hey, how would it feel? Like, just imagine, kids are very imaginative. So if you play on that, like, hey, how would it feel? You could have a more vivid description so that they could really go there in their mind. Like, you built a tower of blocks. You were so proud of it. You thought it was going to break or fall down, but it didn't. And it was so high and you were so proud. And then all of a sudden, another little kid came and knocked it down and laughed. How would that feel? If you come at it from that tone, the kid's going to be like, that wouldn't feel good. And now you're accessing empathy. So now that they're in that space, now they're much more willing to look to the kid and be like, sorry, I did that. Or next time you make a castle, I promise I won't do that. Or I'll at least try not to do that.
Right. Well, and I think that, that everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. And just the way you said it, you're saying the same thing. It's just, like you said, just different tones. What are your thoughts on forced apologies? Just kind of an offshoot of this question, because what you just led to was a natural progression to an apology. I know people have different opinions on this, and I'm just curious about yours. What if the kid they just cannot understand that what they did was wrong and they need to apologize? Maybe it's not to a sibling where they can apologize a couple of days later after they've cooled off. Maybe they're at the park and they've hit somebody with a toy or something like that. What are your thoughts on that? And does that teach our kids anything?
Yeah, that's a tough question. It depends on the situation. I mean, I'll admit sometimes I will guide a kid to apologize when they're being really, like, stubborn. Sometimes it is good to lead someone into humility and being apologetic when they've done something really bad. I will push the issue and get the kid there with all the skills I have. Of course, I start off, as sweet and gentle, but if I have an example in my 12-week program of Once there was a boy who was smothering a little girl with a pillow at their after school babysitting program. So in a situation like that, when the kid was so stubborn, like, I don't care, I don't care. Well, I would be like, you need to, this was very bad. Like, sometimes it is okay to be passionate, that we believe in, we stand up for what's right. And in those situations, like forcing kind of an apology, but getting the kid there, really with empathy. And yes, you do owe this girl an apology. But then other times when it's not as serious, I don't want to raise kids to be over apologizers, especially
Right.
women. We're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. So I definitely don't want to do that. When I notice a kid is saying sorry too much, I'm like, ooh, we need to turn this around. So when it's not a serious situation like that, there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I'll stop, oops, next time I'll try to do this differently. They don't have to actually say the word, I'm sorry, but in one way or another, they do have to take responsibility. It could even just be a head nod or an okay, like, hey, you accidentally slapped her when you ran by, and she's crying. Can you make sure that you are more careful when you run by next time? As long as some sort of, well, for the people listening audibly, I just nodded my head, so it could be something that of just some sort of small token of like, I get it. I will,
Gotcha.
rather than like, I am very sorry. Because that, if that's done too much, then that could contribute to a negative self-concept of them being hard on themselves. Every little mistake they have to say sorry. Now they're going to be, that'll grow to be hard on themselves. And let's please, not raise the next generation to be hard on themselves, because this generation is already so hard on themselves.
Exactly.
Let's break
So
that.
it's a fine line there for sure. But I see what you're saying. We would rather them understand the issue, and that's where the empathy comes in, than saying words that they don't really mean.
Yeah.
What about the negotiation aspect, and how can we utilize that in our lives at home with our kids, and either in sibling situations or as parents, whenever we're to the point of trying to resolve the conflict, like you gave the example earlier of watching the TV show. What are some other ways that we can do that? I know some people, think that we shouldn't negotiate with our children, that what we say should just be what it is. But what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have two categories of things. Like, hard no's are things that, yeah, there's no negotiation. Like, those are the hard rules that, like, hitting, running away from me in public, stuff like that, where this is not a negotiation. And I really feel, I come from the philosophy that kids really need to have a strong pillar in their parents. And there are certain things that we don't budge on, and that actually helps them to feel secure. That their parent won't let them get too out of control with certain things, that makes them feel safe. But then all the other things fall under the category, like I just say, soft nose. Now, these are the things where negotiation is appropriate. These are the things where, like, hey, can you put your napkin in the garbage? Or like, hey, I know you're really enjoying pouring water from one cup to the other, but I'm afraid it's going to make a mess. Can you please, like, we can be respectful. Now here we're modeling respect with kind requests. We're not rigid here. And here's where negotiation could come into play. But yeah, like you said, it's a fine line. You don't want to, it has to be done with the correct nuances, because, like, for example, with the kid pouring water from cup to cup in the dining room table or the kitchen table, and you say, I really don't want you to do that because I'm afraid you're going to get the hardwood floors wet, and now here's where you always believe in your kids, and you always see that their so-called misbehaviors are not bad, but underneath them there are interests there. There are things that show their strengths, like their emerging strengths, like they love water, they love pouring. Okay, maybe they'll be in a scientific, water, I don't know, something when they grow up, so we want to recognize what is it that's fascinating them, and then have an agreement of a negotiation with, like, hey, if you could please respect my rule of not pouring water from cup to cup, I would really appreciate it. But I get that you love this. So what I'm going to do, if you could please respect this rule, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a water play station in the backyard. I'm going to set it up this weekend and you're going to have a lot of fun. Is that a deal? And then let's say the kid is like, yeah, that sounds great. But then they continue to do that and be like, I think I'm going to wait till next week to set up the water station because I did, ask that if you could please not do it on the dining room table, then I'll give it to you. So, and not to frustrate them, we always want to set them up for success, not failure. That's another blind spot that parents have is they set something up and they don't support the kid in getting there. And then the kid doesn't get the thing. And then now it's just a lose-lose, like everyone's frustrated. So we want to set the kid up for success. So even if they don't get it the first time, us to say, I really believe that, you can do it tomorrow. And then, of course, they could need prompting. They could use some prompting. So let's say you see they're about to grab the water pitcher and they want to pour it, be like, oh, please remember that I don't allow you to do that in here. Or please don't do that in here. But remember the water play table. I will set that up after dinner or whatever.
Gotcha. All right. This makes sense. This makes sense. And then you've mentioned several times about blind spots, that we have as parents. Are there, and I know we're just about out of time. Are there any other blind spots that are key that you want to point out today that we should be looking out for in our own lives?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because I really wanted to fit this in before we finish. One blind spot is that we might talk to kids and give them a lecture on, hey, when you get angry, you can't slap, you can't hit, you can't say mean things, you can't destroy my stuff, you can't knock everything off the table. Next time, just take a few breaths. And then we expect, let's say fast forward, the older brother goes into the little sister's room and ruins her video game. And then she goes crazy and hits her brother and says mean things and destroys stuff. And then you say, hey, remember I told you next time you get mad, you're supposed to take a few deep breaths. And so that's just a huge blind spot because how realistic would it be to expect her to, so my point is just a simple talk, like explaining it or lecturing them isn't that's not what it takes to get her to be able to do this. So if you look at a scale of 0 to 10, like 0 not being angry at all, 10 being the most angry a person could possibly be, the blind spot is they need practice on a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, a level 4. If you expect them to handle themselves well, then you need to coach them and guide them on all these little situations where they find themselves along the scale. So when an opportunity arises, like let's say, we'll use that same example of someone builds a castle with their blocks, the sibling breaks it down. I approach it as like, ooh, we talked about this, remember? Oh, so you're angry? How angry? Is it a 4? Okay, practice. What are you going to do? Let me watch. With no make wrong if she ends up doing her same bad habits. It's okay. We're in a learning process. And so I use those as opportunities to practice for that day when the level 10 comes. We practice all along the way. So let's say there's a kid, let's say your son's about to get on a swing and then someone else gets on the swing. Oh, are you angry? Okay. What number would you rank it? How does it feel in your body? There's so many things with developing self-awareness. How does it feel in your body? What are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? And so to coach kids and equip them all along the way so that that's the only way that they have a chance to navigate this well when it's at a level 7, 8, 9, 10. So the blind spot is expecting them to navigate such difficult things without helping them along on those lower levels of anger.
Absolutely. It's like you would never send your kid to basketball tryouts without teaching them how to dribble the ball first, right? They have to learn the different skills before they can do the big thing. So, well, and then one last question for you. So speaking tied to what we were just talking about, I know there's not like one right answer as a way to help children navigate anger and feelings of frustration. But what are some things like you talked about, taking a few deep breaths? What are some things that we can do if they're level 4 or 6 or whatever? How can we guide them through that?
I think The most important thing is to validate that they are allowed, our old generation didn't do this, so we can be growing with our kids as we guide them with this, but that your anger is justified. So the whole getting things, like, I get it. You are really mad right now. You just want to do what you want to do. You don't want rules. I get it. You're getting tired of having to wear your life jacket. You just want to go in the middle of the lake, don't you? Like, I really get it, with no judgment. Like, you're angry, aren't you? Yeah. And then personally relating. Yeah, I remember this one time. I hated the fact that I had to wear a life vest too. Whew. But then don't budge. So don't give them what they want. Okay. Yeah. This is something I'm so passionate about. Be very, very careful. I know it's so hard when you see your poor, precious kid being distraught, but don't give in and give them the thing, because if you do, then now you're accidentally, another blind spot. Now what you've accidentally done is, when they're angry and you've taught them all of the self-regulating strategies, like you're saying, along the lines of breathing, feeling it in your body, brainstorming what you can do, what you can say. Like, a lot of times parents say, you can't do these things. Well, what can they do when they're angry or frustrated or jealous? And so, I just lost my train of thought. Like,
You were saying, like, if you go back and you give them what they want,
oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Cute. Wow, so sharp. Okay, so I'm getting so worked up here. So if you give them what they want, check it out. Now, when they're feeling these feelings, they're less likely to cooperate with the self-regulating strategies that you've been working on and practicing, because in their space, there's the whole notion that you're accidentally encouraging them to act crazier and madder and more out of control, because they know that gets them what they want. So instead of being more likely to cooperate and calm down, if you have a history of giving them what they want, the crazier they act. Now they're not going to want to cooperate with regulating themselves, because they're thinking, like, this works. They may not think it consciously, but it's like a knee-jerk response.
Right.
If you set up that habit. Yeah.
And that's going to continue to grow with them outside of the home too. And ultimately they'll treat other people that way, right? Not just mom or dad, because they feel like if they push enough, they can get what they want.
Right. And that'll impact their friendships. The great quality friends out there in their classrooms or day camps or sports are going to be turned off by that. So
right.
They'll only be friends with people who fall for that. I mean, that happens tons of times in the classroom. If you don't do what I say, I'm going to be mean to you. I'm not going to be your friend. I'm not going to play with you. I'm not going to sit by you. It's like, those are not healthy relational skills. Right. So we want to help kids navigate their big emotions without being, dysfunctional or toxic in their relational skills, but at the same time, healthfully navigate that and have the communication skills to articulate, like, wow, I feel really mad that you didn't invite me to your birthday party. Maybe I will, like, scribble on a piece of paper. Maybe I will, do some crazy dancing. Maybe I'll jump on a trampoline. Like, I have this feeling, I need to get it out. Maybe I'll journal. Maybe I'll go to my parent, ask for a hug. Maybe I need to talk about it, and so they'll be more likely to do those healthy things when they feel these difficult feelings, and they'll cut the ties off of those negative dysfunctional things when they know it doesn't work anyway, and it only makes their life worse rather than it makes their life better. Like, they got the ice cream, they got what they wanted. Right. It's so hard to do, though.
It's so hard. That's what I was going to say. I think that is one of the hardest parts of parenting, especially if it's something you can provide to your child to make them happier, because we never want to see our children upset, but so important that we protect those boundaries. I know my mom has always said, say what you mean and mean what you say, when she talks about my parenting, right? Like, if I say, you're not going to do this, you can't change your mind, right? And so also she would always say too, think before you answer, because later on you might be like, well, there was really no reason why I didn't let him go to their house, but I've already said no, so I can't do it now. But anyways, I just think that everything you've said makes so much sense. And it is really, even though it sounds so simple, it's so hard to do, especially the last part.
And you don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, all or nothing. You can make allowances and then just salvage it by saying, I let you go to your friend's house because I realized, you haven't hung out with friends in a while, but it wasn't because you said you hate me, though. It wasn't because of that. Yeah, I actually don't want you to say that. That, and then hold them responsible. Like, can you, like, that was not nice to me, and like make them deal with that. And so you can, yeah, I mean, really, you only have to be really, really careful with this when the kid's behavior has gotten very out of control and very negative. Then that's when you have to put in all this stuff in place. But it's not like a kid will never, a kid is allowed to mess up, and, so there's plenty of room for, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
when a kid has really bad habits of behavior and it's really affecting them negatively on their path in life, then that's when parents really have to be careful, to stop that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Maura, this was extremely helpful. I'm sure lots of people listening are going to pull different tidbits out of here. And I know you gave several different blindside issues that I was noticing in my mind, like, yep, I do that. Yep, I do that. So I'm sure others are going to be learning as well. If they would like to learn more about you, I know you have a workshop, but you also have a free masterclass. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the master class coming up is July 28th, Friday, 8 p.m. Central. And it's going to be a 90-minute masterclass that helps parents to see these blind spots, to have them revealed, and then gives them the first couple steps to really start to try to turn around this behavior. And then if parents want more support, they can register for my 12-week program that offers group coaching, and there's private coaching available as well. And it's at getkidstobehave.com, and the masterclass information is up there. I'll be running it regularly, so in case they miss that date, look out for the next date. And I'm also on Facebook with a private Facebook group and all the socials. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure we link to all of that in the show notes so you can go check out Maura's masterclass and her workshop and socials and learn more, because this was really, really beneficial. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate it.
If you are looking for more ways to build communication skills in your kids, grab our free mini lesson on how to craft a polished and professional speech out of thin air, along with 52 fun prompts so your kids can practice every single week. You can find that along with info about our upcoming public speaking and debate courses for kids at greencommunicationsedu.com.